Welcome to the Small Church Podcast, where faith, community, and ministry intersect in the unique context of smaller congregations. I'm your host, Tony Marr, and I'm thrilled to be joined by two men who are convinced they're a little bit more talented than I am.
That is right. I'm Robert Kell, one of those supposedly more talented guys, co-host and fellow small church leader. Together, we're here to explore the challenges, triumphs, and inspiring stories within the tight-knit communities that make up our smaller churches.
And I'm Bruce Montgomery, the one here to bring even more to the table than these two and offer a unique perspective to our conversation.
So whether you believe this talent hierarchy or not, you're in for a treat. If you're a pastor, a church member, or just curious about the world of leadership, you're in the right place.
Each episode, we dive into topics that matter to you, from innovative ministry ideas to navigating the unique dynamics of a smaller congregation.
So grab your cup of coffee, settle in, and let's journey together through the wonderful tapestry of small church life.
This is the Small Church Podcast.
Gentlemen, I need help today.
I'm going to need a little more clarity there. I feel like that's every week. So
My wife has been out of town for 5 days, and I have been on my own, and it has been rough. It's been a difficult time. And my wife is out of town. She went to the motherland. She went home to my home. She's been in Las Vegas for the last several days. She comes home tomorrow. And so I am desperately counting down the hours, the minutes, and the seconds until she gets back home.
well, I mean, it's Wednesday, and I saw you Sunday morning, and you were already like a little deer in the headlights on Sunday. So I'm assuming 3 days later,
I'm lost without her. Completely
you're not
lost.
Doing well.
Completely lost. I was not cut out to be a bachelor. I can tell you that.
No.
I will tell you this, though. So my wife is a real estate agent with Keller Williams Realty, and she's at...
You want to drop a QR code?
I really do. So if you're looking for a home in the greater Tennessee or Virginia area, please reach out to Lou Decker Marr Property Group of Keller Williams Realty. But she is... Keller Williams is the largest real estate firm in the world right now. And they're having what they call family reunion in Las Vegas. So there are over 20,000 real estate agents that wear the KW name badge that have attacked, and from hearing her talk and some of the FaceTimes that we've had, attacked the city of Las Vegas this week. But they do a thing that is kind of like the NFL Man of the Year award, the award for integrity and character, and each market center. So all of the Tri-Cities where we live is under one market center. And each market center had to submit a nominee, just like each NFL team submits a nominee for NFL Man of the Year. And not knowing this at all,
If it's not Amanda, this is the worst story ever.
so not knowing this at all, the Tri-Cities Market Center nominated my wife, Amanda,
That is awesome.
for this award. And then Keller Williams as a whole selected regional winners. Our region is like Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, everything here. And my wife won the award for our region at Keller Williams Family Reunion.
That is awesome and
having-
well deserved. She's a great human.
She's a great woman, and
Yeah.
I'm very, very proud of her. And so to all of our small church podcast listeners, I'm just going to brag on my wife.
Nah,
for
man, you
that.
should.
And that's over.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Really, really proud of her, but ready for her to come home.
You've won your awards. You've had your fun. You got to listen to Tony Robbins. He
She
was
did.
there.
Tony Robbins was there.
Yeah, that was good.
She
So-
said he had a lot of energy, and she lives
I'm
with me.
shocked.
She said she lives with me, and even he had a lot of energy for her. So yeah, she's having a great time. Lots of fun there. But Vegas isn't really her kind of town, especially if I'm not with her. So
Yeah, it wouldn't be my jam. But I'd have fun for a couple days.
I call it home.
Because it is.
That's right. So with all of that said, Bruce, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Just trying to get through the day and enjoy the podcast. And I'm eager to hear what Justin has to say.
Yeah, we have our first repeat guest today. if you want to call it that, right?
It's a more gracious guest. It's our most
guest.
gracious guest that we've ever had today.
Yeah, so several months ago, we had Justin Nava from Nava Church Marketing on the Small Church podcast, and just a
So good.
knock it out of the park episode.
good.
One of the best episodes we've ever had. And then I went to do our post-production, and there was no audio. And Justin, I haven't even told you this story. So I went and there was no audio. And it was there, but it was so faint that you couldn't pick it up at all. So I spent 2 weeks, literally the only thing I could do. I watched every YouTube video, every tutorial that I could find on how to boost audio, did everything that could be done, and you still couldn't hear anything. And so what I had to do is I had to set up our recording equipment, put the microphone to a speaker, replay the entire episode into the microphone with the microphone turned all the way up, then re-download it into our editing software, boost it, and then re-record it again on a microphone, and did this like 4 or 5 times. So I'm very familiar with everything that Justin said on our last episode. And then it's still, by that time, the audio quality was where you could hear it, but it was still very, very poor. And we have had more comments and responses to the episode that we did with Justin than any other episode. And I wish that I could say that it was because the content was so great, but it was because people kept saying, man, I really wanted to hear what Justin had to say that was really relevant to where we're at in the life of our church. I just couldn't suffer through it anymore because the audio quality was completely unlistenable. So I reached out to Justin a couple weeks ago and said, hey, man, our listeners would be thrilled to hear from you again. And he graciously accepted the offer to come join us again. So Justin, how are things in Texas?
Things are great. Things are starting to warm up. We had our first 80-degree week this week, and so we're getting right back into the thick of a warm spring here, but things are fantastic. And hey, I appreciate you guys asking me back on. It's quite an honor to be asked back to a podcast, and it's not something that happens all the time because there's so many great people out there. So I'm honored from you and from your audience for saying, hey, let's dive deeper into this. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, 2 things. One, you just ruined Tony's day because he walked outside as I was getting to the studio, and he was like, isn't this weather perfect? And it's like 68 degrees here. And I'm like, yes, this is great. And I said, but by 3 o'clock today, it's going to be 34 degrees. And he's like, you're lying. And I'm like, no, man. And so we're dropping. It's literally going to snow here tonight. So Tony's
gonna say.
yeah. And then my second thing is, and I asked this before, I need to ask it now. How's Buc-ee's? Are they doing okay? They're in the mother state, and we're super thankful you keep sending them our way. I am, at least.
Buc-ee's is great, doing just as good as Whataburger. And
That's me to Whataburger.
You know, anytime you're in the Houston area, that's where I am. Go to Katy Buc-ee's. They got the world's longest car wash. You make a day out of it. It's a blast.
Wow. Well, I'll have to go because we have the largest Buc-ee's in the country right now.
Yeah, and I'm wondering how you feel about that Tennessee has the largest Buc-ee's.
It's not for long, though. They're building one in Florida and then a bigger one in Texas.
You know, if you can't be first, be the biggest.
Hey, I don't care.
That's been your motto your whole life.
I'm just fat, man. I just eat all I can. Yeah, I'm just tall and big. So no, anyway, that's it is funny. I do love that store, and I know you don't love it as much.
I like it if I can get there. But it's
Interstate,
so
right
expensive. Yeah, but it takes like 45 minutes of traffic just to get there, and then another 45 minutes to get back onto the main road.
I'm going to have to give you and Melissa driving lessons of how to get in and out of Buc-ee's. I never spend more than 8 minutes getting out of that place. I don't know. So anyway, all right. Hey, more important stuff.
You're not doing Buc-ee's right. It's at least a 30-minute walk around trip.
Oh yeah. No,
if you're not walking out spending 3 digits when you just stopped for an icy, you're not doing Buc-ee's right.
Well, no, our parking lot is really poorly designed in Sevierville, and so if you ever get over this way, call us. I'll meet you at Buc-ee's, and we'll at least hang out a couple minutes. But it's very poorly designed, and it's at a weird traffic light. It's this 1-lane road up, which I guess 2 lanes each way. 2 lanes in, 2 lanes out. these weird roundabouts, and there's rumors, and it's probably lies just trying to mess people, that they're actually going to get their own exit because it gets so much traffic, to try and ease the traffic out another direction. But it's really a poor design to know what that store was going to be in a tourist trap like Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, Sevierville. And so, but it's a monstrous store. It takes 20 minutes just to walk from one side to the other, and it's amazing.
Yeah, and Justin, you're a marketing guy. You specialize in marketing. Every time you look at that logo, do you not just think, come on, what were you guys thinking?
I haven't thought about it. I mean, it's not just the logo. The logo is just a thing. It's the identity behind it. And when you see that glowing orange, we call it a second moon at night, it's like, this is our rest. This is our break. This is our sanctuary for the next hour.
Speaking of poor marketing, knowing that my wife was going to be going out of town for a week, we had a date last week, and I wanted to go to the movies. We hadn't gone to movies in a long time, and there wasn't anything that really interested us, but we ended up going to see a movie called Land of Bad. And the movie was actually really great. But what a horrible name for a movie. Why, if you're wanting people to pay money to go and sit in a seat and watch your film, do you call it Land of Bad?
Well, you went. Maybe that's the perfect marketing.
There was nobody. We were the only people in the theater. The only people there.
I want to ask.
But we can't talk too much about that. I mean, we could run through a dozen movie names that are just bad. But let's not forget that we're so creative as churches. When we come in, and again, remember, if you're not first, be the biggest. So we come into a town and it's like, oh, there's already a Baptist church here. What do we call ourselves? Second Baptist Church. And yes, I have asked my Twitter, or back then it was Twitter, now it's X. There are third Baptist churches out there. Fun fact, I don't know if anyone knew that.
So Justin,
go ahead.
If you're working with a group, a church calls you and you're sitting down to help them with their church marketing and reaching their community, and they have a name like Third Baptist Church, is that where you start with them?
You
have to remember. So remember, on this side of the door, okay, we're creatives. The number one creative agency right now is called Design Pickle. All right. One of the greatest movies of the 80s is called Die Hard. Okay. Names
Christmas movie
are just names. Okay.
That was a Christmas movie, yeah.
Names are just, we're in February, guys. Get over it. We're.
Oh my goodness, I love this guy
Names
so
are just
much.
names. Okay? Names are just names. It's what's behind the name is what matters. I mean, Amazon, what does that mean? FedEx. No, very few people think it's Federal Express, right? It's just FedEx. Names are names. Who are the McDonald's? I don't know. Who is Wendy? I don't know. But I know I'm going to go to Wendy's before I go to McDonald's. I think they're better. So it's in a name. Taco Bell. Like, if you stop and think about all the brand names that are out there, you realize none of that matters. And you can be Second Baptist and be the biggest. You can be Second Methodist and be the biggest. You could be Mosaic Human Fellowship and be the most rockin', God-honoring church. A name's a name. We used to have meaning in the Bible, I guess. Now, so much, it's like, what's really the identity and the message and the understanding behind it?
So then, why do you think we have? So why do you think we have churches that are doing?
We were just talking about
rebrands?
Buc-ee's, and you were like, "Tell me about that name, Buc-ee's." All right, here in Texas, we got Whataburger. At least In-N-Out, as much as we despise In-N-Out as a family,
God!
by the way.
We have to end this right now. We have to end this interview right now.
Whataburger, right? The number one burger joint in Texas. What a name is that? At least In-N-Out has some kind of sense behind it.
My wife is bringing me back a double-double tomorrow.
It's all about the identity. Hey, get some mayonnaise and some bacon, and then we'll talk. It's all about the identity behind the brand.
Yeah, I mean, that's so, like, there's a lot to be said there, and just a lot going through my brain. And sorry, then the Whataburger thing, kind of the Whataburger In-N-Out discussion kind of lost me there for a second. But I think about that, and so many churches, though, Justin, they get caught up in in the bigger deal of, oh man, if our logo was a little bit better, or if our, our name was different, and they start trying to change things. And I'm in a really small town, and it's, we got 85 churches in a county of about 17,000 people. So a lot like Texas, I would assume, just small towns have churches everywhere. But it's, people just keep trying to change and move and navigate things in a way that if I can change my name, people will see me differently. But it's the same ownership, the same leadership, the same, preaching, the same teaching, the same mission, vision, and values. And like you said, really at that point in time, and what's in a name? I mean, a Rose Maynard, the name would still be a Rose. I mean, we can change the name anything we want, but unless the heart and I guess the design, the intent changes of how people are leading, loving, and caring for their communities, then, and God and Jesus as well in that space, it really doesn't matter what the name and the branding of the other stuff is.
It's all about the messaging behind it. The example that I use is back when I weighed 360 pounds and I went to the gym. I walked up to the gym owner and I said, Landon, I need to lose over 100 pounds. What BCAAs should I be taking? And he looks at me straight and he's like, don't take any, go work out and eat less, right? Like that's thinking that you can just change a logo or thinking that you can just change your name and that's going to shift everything for you. That's kind of like thinking, you know what, we don't have enough people in our 9 o'clock, in our worship service at 9 o'clock. Let's move it to 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. We'll be later and therefore more people will show up. You're looking at a symptom of an issue and you're trying to treat a symptom and you're getting caught up in what I call the sexy part of marketing and not in the actual, look, if we have a name and we change it, everyone in town is going to know we just changed our name. It's going to take 7 years for people to forget that. So they're still going to know you for who you are, and your messaging is still going to be the same. You got a boring message at Second Baptist. You're going to have a boring message if you just become Second Church of whatever town. Like it's all about how you present yourself and how you communicate yourself. And there's some internal stuff with that, but also in how you present it. And that's why in Houston, like Second Baptist is one of the biggest churches because they have put in the energy to not only build the church as they did, but also communicate the church as they did. So when people hear Second Baptist, they don't think, well, what happened to the first one? They think, I want to go there.
That's a really interesting part of the conversation too, because looking back at what you were talking about a few minutes ago with like McDonald's and Wendy's and Walmart, and you mentioned Taco Bell. I think there was another a place or two that would be considered much older. It's funny because, almost 50 years old, like I'm looking back and I'm going, okay, I know the story behind McDonald's. I know the story. I know who Wendy is. I mean, I know the Walmart family. I've heard those stories, but when you I don't know Taco Bell actually, like ironically enough, I don't know much about that, but you get to a place, you talked about Federal Express. Like I knew FedEx is Federal Express because I'm old, but there's literally an entire generation. I don't know that my kids, 20, 16, and 15 would have a clue that FedEx stands for Federal Express because all they've seen is the brand, and it's been the service and what happens that has created them to either like or dislike that product that is coming out there. And so no, those are really good talking points and like just some really great thoughts for me.
Yeah, Justin, you spend your days helping churches figure out effective ways to reach their community. And I would assume that most churches, when they sit down with you, when they reach out to you for the first time, they think that what you're going to do with them is all of the things that you just said you're not going to do with them. So how have you noticed a change in the perspective, the paradigm of church marketing in the last several years?
Unfortunately, there hasn't been a change. It's getting harder to recognize what needs to happen because marketing has gotten better. So a pastor says, I'm not happy with the number of people that are not showing up. I'm not happy with the number of guests that we have. And they see an ad that says, hey, get more guests to your church through your website. So they start thinking, okay, it's the website that's a problem. Let me look. And I guess it's kind of boring. It's been a few years since we did anything with our website. Let me get this new website. At the same time, another pastor's thinking the same thing, and they get an ad, hey, you should start texting people and that'll get them re-engaged to your church. And it's like, okay, well, maybe that's it, because we don't text our people, so we'll start texting them. Again, it's like someone who's overweight and wants to lose weight, and they see an ad for, hey, get fit in 3-minute abs. And it's like, oh, that's what I've never done before. I've never done 3-minute abs or P90X or whatever. Like or they see a gym ad. Okay, yeah, maybe that's what's going to work. This other gym didn't work, so maybe Planet Fitness will work. You're just addressing the symptom. If all you do is work out, but you don't eat right, you're not going to have much forward movement. It's an ecosystem of balance that you have to have in order to see the progress you want to see. So it's become very difficult for me because other organizations, and fantastic organizations, that do websites, that do advertising, that do branding, they are hammers, oftentimes recognizing, I'm not going to say they're looking for nails, but they're recognizing things as nails. Whereas I take a more holistic approach. I don't remember if we talked about it last time I was on, but allow me to repeat myself a little bit. Where marketing and promoting your church and getting the community aware of your church is like a puzzle. If you just take one piece of a puzzle and hold it up, you can't tell what the entire picture is going to be. And that's what a lot of churches do. They take one piece, they take one website, and expect that to do all the work of communicating who the church is and why people should care. Maybe they take a few puzzle pieces, and if you're lucky, you get a few puzzle pieces that fit together. Okay, we got a website, we got a great brand, and we got Google Ads, right? If you get those three pieces together, you can tell, all right, this is a picture of a horse. And then you can actually start to communicate that image of who your church is and why people should care to your community. What we do is we look at the entire puzzle and say either what's missing, or if you're doing a picture of a horse, why is there a G.I. Joe puzzle piece in here? You've got something totally wrong. So what we do is we take a holistic approach and we take an overall comprehensive approach, and we look at the three main ways that people come to church, and how is your church being present in those three ways. And that's become difficult because everything's gotten cheaper relatively. So now you can get a website for $30 and it's built for you, and people get that and they think it's going to be an improvement. And what ends up happening is it's an improvement on the design. It's not an improvement on the message. And people don't come to church because of a beautiful website. They come to church because they see themselves and what's available for them at the church through the website, and the design supports what they're saying. And so it's become a little bit tougher for us because people call us and it's like, hey, we just need a website. And I'm like, okay, well, we need to sit down and we need to look at, well, first of all, like, why do you want a website? Oh, we want to get more people to church. So then we sit down, we do what's called a road mapping session, and we take a look and a deep dive at everything they're doing to bring people to church, and we find the gaps. And what we find is, a website's not going to fix anything. The problem is you're not communicating the right message to the right people in the right way. You're speaking Chinese to a group of Spanish speakers. They don't understand you. They cannot understand you, and it's not easy to connect with you. And that's honestly, some pastors are like, yeah, I'm in. Like, they really want to see a shift in their church, in their community. And other pastors, I mean, we say the same thing about people that come to church sometimes. They just want to check a box. They want to feel like they did something. And sometimes it's easier just to put $30 a month on a credit card and say, yeah, we did something. We made movement forward. But nothing's really ever changed. So the landscape has gotten really tough, and that's kind of one of the reasons I started my agency, because I didn't like selling websites to people who wanted websites. I want to be a partner in ministry with people who want to impact their community, equip their people better, and use online marketing methods to assist in their ministry. So it's gotten a little tough. I think I said that like 3 or 4 times already, but that's how tough it is. I spend a lot of days on calls, and pastors, they have an end goal in mind, but they don't see anything past what's going to check a box and make them feel good or feel like they did something. And sometimes I talk to executive pastors, and they're like, well, we only got this for websites. I can't use it for Facebook ads. And we sit down, and through our process, we say, like, yeah, a website's a long-term solution. You need to triple your guests in 90 days. So we need to take it this route. And they can't do that because there's some operational issues. So it's gotten tough for me, but that's one of the things about running an agency is, like, I'm okay with that. because in the end, I'm doing what I think is best for the kind of people that I think we can serve the best.
Justin, you it's so much stuff. You talk about your all strategy, and you all have a really simple, like 3-phase strategy. And I think you covered a lot of those pieces. Not maybe it wasn't like you talked of, the IPM that you guys have as your strategy there, but like as you look at that, because our goal is definitely to help small churches influence and invest in the people in their community in the right way, to the people who are a part of their family, a part of their house, part of their church, the people who are in their community who are looking for, faith conversations or looking to connect with a faith community. Like, we're wanting to help with that. How, like, I guess without giving away things for free, like, what's that, I guess kind of a little bit of walk us through, and that way as people are listening, they can go, hey man, that's really a thing. I need to reach out to Justin and his team and kind of do that. How does your process work in that space of what you guys start to address and look at?
So we tackle a holistic approach. So everything starts at square one. Who are you? And the first phase of if you do everything with us, our entire program, the first phase is what we call influence inception. We're reworking some words, so you might hear it be called something else, but it's basically, how do you influence your community? How are they influenced by you, which, by the way, could be bad. And we look at who your church is equipped to serve, or who you are designed to serve. Why do you exist? Why did you not just join up with another church? Why did God call your church to be planted, even if it was 80, 100 plus years ago? Who you're equipped to serve, what's going to resonate with those people, and then how can you invite those people to your church? If you don't have that plan, the most beautiful website for you is not going to work, because it's not aligned with who you are. It's not aligned with who you're called to serve. It's going to make it difficult for those people to connect with you, and it's going to make it difficult for you to actually represent yourself. So you could be misrepresented, which is why we have such a high turnover, because a lot of churches just do what other churches are doing, and they end up creating a representation of someone that they're not. So people come in with false expectations, and they leave hurt, broken, misled, and that's an obstacle we got to stop and get out of the way. So we look at your messaging, and then, of course, how to represent it in your brand. So similar to the moon of Buc-ee's that we call it, the second moon. When we see that, first of all, when we see that, I taste jerky. Okay. I taste that pepper jack ham kolache that I love. It's a classic. And my daughter sees, I get to get a toy. My wife sees, I get to look at some home decor. My son sees grilled cheese and French fries. Like, we all see our own thing within there, but overall we see a break. We see rest. We see stretch. We see renewal, refreshing. Like, I get coffee if it's late. And I never drink coffee or any caffeine after 5. But if I'm driving late, I stop at Buc-ee's. I get their Texas pecan coffee. It's amazing. Like, that's what I think. And that is all behind that Buc-ee mascot on a yellow circle, right? And different people are going to see different things behind that. Same thing when I see Subway, I twitch, because I used to work at Subway. It means something different to me, right? We all have our own representation. So how do you communicate who your church is visually? That's your identity. And then how do you plan how people are going to connect with you? How do you showcase that you can serve them? Because people can understand what you do, but they won't connect and engage with you until they feel understood by you. It's one thing to understand what someone does, but I will never feel connected to it unless I feel like they understand my needs. Therefore, they are equipped and have the authority and empathy to actually help and support me in whatever I want to do in life, moving forward towards something or moving away from something. So that's the first thing, is how are we going to influence the community? From there, everything else is, I was talking to a client yesterday. I said, from there, everything else is pretty much built, because you don't have to think about what you're going to say. You don't have to think about what you're going to post. You don't have to think how often you're going to post or where you're going to post. You don't have to think about what you're going to say on your plan and visit page or what you're going to say on your staff page. You don't have to think about what kind of creative do I need for my Facebook ad. All that's done because it's part of your messaging. It's part of who you figured out who you are and what people need to hear to tune into you and hear what you have to say. So that's the first part. Before I go on, I'm going to take a break. Y'all have any thoughts on that? I don't want to train. I feel like last time on the last show, I just kept talking. So I want to make sure I give y'all some room too. It's your show.
Justin, one of the things that I want to circle back on of something that you just said, and you actually tied it in really well with mentioning Subway. I just had a conversation with a pastor in the last week and a half who is struggling. He's new at his church. He has been there only about 3 or 4 months, and he's facing that he's in a smaller community where the church has a reputation. The church has been a key figure in that community for decades. And unfortunately, in a large portion of the community, it's not a good identity that they have. And so he was talking to me about how do I change the identity? He was going so far as to saying some of the things that we've talked about, that we're talking through maybe needing to change the name of the church because there's a stigma to our name in this small community. And it's very difficult to change that stigma when, as soon as people hear the name of our church, certain images immediately are triggered in their mind. Certain memories and people are immediately invoked within them. And he said, I'm having a really hard time overcoming that in my short time here. And so he was saying, how do we go about that? And I actually told him, you need to wait a couple weeks and listen to what Justin is going to say because he's going to address a lot of this.
No pressure, buddy. No pressure at all.
But you talked about Subway. My wife was actually marketing director for all of our area Subways for a couple of years, about 27 Subways, and Moe's restaurants that were all owned by the same company here. And Subway, if you look at now, they're trying to rechange some of that. They now have fresh sliced deli meats, freshly sliced right in front of you there. You know, they're now doing the foot-long cookies and foot-long pretzels and all this kind of stuff. Because my wife also worked for the Subway organization, we don't frequent Subway very much. But they're in that same thing where they're trying to fight negative stigmas around their brand. How as a small church in a small community that already has that label attached to them, how do they overcome that?
That's a great question. That's something that we talk about a lot. So first of all, much like we do in ministry, I never want to give blind advice. So the first thing in that specific instance, I would need to sit down and say, okay, well, let's look at the history of the church, what the reputation is, what are people saying. We even need to talk about the people in the church, the community inside and outside of the church. But I'll give you a general kind of like awareness. Number one, this shift is going to take at least 7 years. Okay. It's kind of like coming into ministry, right? You're in youth ministry. It's not really your ministry until 7 years after after everyone leaves from the previous ministry. Now we're in your mode. Now we're running it as God has given you the vision to run it. And the same thing is when you come in with a negative reputation. Okay. And the hard thing about a small community is if you change the name, which I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but I'm saying it's not a quick fix, because if you're in a small community and you change the name, everyone's going to know you just changed your name. Okay. And instead of, hey, come to Hope Baptist or whatever, it's going to be like, hey, come to Hope Baptist. What is that? Oh, it's where the old First Baptist used to be. Okay. It's the same church, right? So it's really, it's one part of it. But again, you can't hold up that one puzzle piece and expect everyone to see the entire picture that you want to see. It's going to be like a relationship where you've been hurt, and it's going to take a lot of positive interaction. This is not something that marketing can fix. It's something that marketing can assist in your efforts to fix it. So it's going to be more of, for that pastor and for pastors in that situation, it's going to be more of a ministry revitalization, replanting, and then how can we communicate this to the community? And you got to have a thick skin, because the first couple years you do this, you're going to be met with resistance. People aren't going to say, oh, it's under new management. It's going to be great. They're going to say, oh, it's under new management. This is what I think when I pass a business that's under new management. Oh, it's under new management. I hope they turn things around. I'm still not going back, but I might go in 2 or 3 years if that's something that I think they've got a handle on. So I would first off make sure that we understand it's not a marketing issue. It's a ministry, community presence issue. And then we assist that by making sure that, okay, wherever this new direction is, What is the messaging behind it? What is the brand behind it? What is the reputation you want to have? And then we blast that information lovingly into the community, and we want to bathe the community in that reputation. Okay, if you're in a bathtub, you're bathed in the warmth of the tub. No matter where you go, you're going to feel warm, right? You ever sit even in a pool and you sit for a while, or a hot tub, and you're like, okay, and then you move a little bit and the temperature is suddenly different again because you got kind of stagnant and you're warmed up again. That's exactly what it is. People are ice cold, and just because you dip it in the hot tub doesn't mean the ice is going to immediately disappear. It needs some time in there. It needs some time to sit and soak in that. And over time, you just it's what do they call it in football? It's an inches game, right? You're just moving the ball inches. And this is where a lot of pastors, and again, a lot of other agencies do a bad job. They say, oh yeah, fix your website, fix your branding, let's launch this campaign. In a year, you'll have 10 times the people and everyone will love you. It cannot be done in a year. If it is, it's in spite of our efforts and it's all because of God's grace. But I'm not saying that's not possible. But if you want to be realistic, say like this is going to be a 7-year public relations campaign. You're going to have everyone against you because guess what? The people that don't like you are also the ones that are going to say, I'm not going to publish a press release because I don't like you. We don't think that's newsworthy. We're not going to have you interviewed on our show to share about your new vision and the new ministry things that you're doing because we know what you did before and it's going to be mostly the same. It is going to be a battle, but it's not one that can't be won, but it needs to be done with ministry focus first. And then from there, me personally, I would say like an incredible focus on discipleship and discipleship relationships out in the community. So instead of saying, hey, look how great we are, look how different we are, come to us, it's we are different now, so we're going to go to you. And then use marketing to assist that and really scale up. I don't like the word scale in church, but really scale up the presence of the church in the community. And it's going to take, they say it takes 7 touches for someone to change their mind or to make a decision. For churches, it takes 700. It's going to take 700 touches over the next 7 years to get someone to say, something must be different. Something might be better.
And you think about that. I mean, you think about twice a week. I mean, and I'm just going with the fact of that, like, you're not just like Jesus to Peter 70 times 7. How many times did I forgive? I'm going with the fact that there's a little bit of like, actual real thought behind that 700 number over 7 years. Like you think twice a week what that looks like. And I know personally in my life, I mean, my wife and I led a gathering in our home that really ended up being for a lot of people who had faced, kind of what you just talked about, like some church hurt, some struggle, and whether right, wrong, or indifferent, like whatever reason they left the church and got away, we had about 70 different people over about 14 months right before COVID that sat in our house. And some of them, as I have transitioned back into a vocational ministry role, have started to come in and sit in the church. But like my wife will sit with them. And if somebody else is speaking, I'll tell them, Melissa and a friend may get up and walk out. It's not you. Because it's taking them time to... They drop the ice in the water and it takes time for it to permeate. And so they can handle it in small doses and small steps. But you think about, I mean, that's been 8 years of literally, I think it's 7 or 8 years that Melissa and I have been sitting in conversations with friends who are asking lots of questions about the church and trying to figure out why they should trust us and what would make us different than the pastor or the Christian who treated them poorly or said mean things or hurt them in the past. And so like the hard thing is, and Justin, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's more than just like finding a way to do 2 ministries a week out in the community. It's equipping and training yourself as a leader and the people who show up to your church on Sundays to go out and actually be kind, to be Jesus, to put yourself at the coffee shop, the restaurant, the places that you sit and build good relational conversations with people over, 2 times a week for 7 years.
Yes. Basically, yeah. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a ministry coach or anything like that. I'd love to be like a revitalization coach someday. But that's exactly right. Real Life Discipleship by Jim Putnam. That's my go-to when it comes to like we need to shift our people out of the pews, off the stands. I want to go back to something you said. when you said people would ask, well, what makes you different? Why should I trust you? And this is the crux of like what I believe and why I spend so much time on like what makes you you and how do you communicate that? Because if you just present yourself as just another church and you say the same things other churches say, welcome home, we're family here, we'd love to have you, join us on Sunday, then two things can happen. Number one, I've never been to church. I've never given thought to a church. And you sound like every other church I haven't given a thought about, so why should I give a thought about you? Or two, I was heard by a church that said the exact same things. So why should I trust you? And this is why it's so important to really dig into what makes you you. And this is why we do our agency this way, because if you want to reach people that have never been reached before, you have to talk to them in a way they've never been talked to before. And so you need to spend time on what makes us us. One of the churches that we're working with right now, we realize the people they're called to serve feel incredibly powerless right now because of the way the world is spinning out of control. And there's no control, there's no values, there's no one listening to them. They're alone, they're isolated, they're anxious, and they feel powerless. And every other church is saying, hey, we got great ministries. We've got fantastic, we've got late service. We've got lunch after service. We got Easter egg hunt for your kids. That's not what this guy needs. That's not what this person needs. And so this church, we're flipping the script and we're saying, look, we understand you're tired. We understand you're frustrated and the world is spinning out of chaos and you don't know what to do and what's going to happen to your family. And you know eventually you're going to have to pick a side and you don't want to do that. But you can find true hope, peace, and power and strength in Jesus and connect with us as a church community. We'll work through your faith with you. We'll walk alongside it with you. And we do church a little bit uniquely. That is a message that would resonate with that person when everyone else is saying, hey, look at us and how great we are. This church is saying, how are you? And that's what we really need to get to the crux of, is not saying how do we emulate every other church, but how do we communicate? I don't know if I used that word right, emulate. How do we do like every other church? But how do we represent us uniquely to the community? And this is such a unique opportunity for small churches because God calls churches to be small, so to speak, small, because there are certain things that you can only do as a small church. And there are people like our family that we go to big church, and I'm not saying big churches, 300, 500,000 plus. Maybe for some of us, we think 100 plus is a big church. And it's just not the same. It doesn't resonate with us. And for some it does. I think that's great. But for small churches, again, you're called to serve a certain type of person. So you have to figure out, how do we capture this person's attention with a message and an invite that is irresistible to where they have to say, tell me more. That's what this is all about. And so that you really have to focus in on that. So then you're not getting questions of why should I trust you? You're getting questions of, all right, tell me more.
Justin, I think you hit the nail on the head that I think for most churches, the problem is we do want to emulate the other churches because that's easy. They've already told us.
Is that the right word? Imitate? Am I thinking of imitate?
No,
emulate
and
emulate's
imitate.
the right word.
Both of them are great. Yeah, those are good words.
All right.
They've already done the work for me. And so I can just pick up Andy Stanley's book and do all the things that North Point is doing and put their same language on our website, copy what they're doing, and think that it's going to work in my small town community the way that it's working in Alpharetta, Georgia. He's already done it all for me, so I'm just going to copy what he does, and that's easy. What you're talking about requires work. It requires effort. It requires getting out from behind your desk and being with the people and understanding the people that you're working to. I would think that people who are reaching out to you and possibly even people who are listening to this right now want to be those people that are going to take that extra step. They're not simply just interested in following what everyone else is doing because it seems to be working for them. And so if it's working for them, it's going to work for me. And it's easy to do. You've done all the work for me. They're willing.
Right there. Could you just imagine Paul? I'm not a theological expert or whatever, but can you imagine Paul writes this letter to the Roman church, and then he's like, oh, things aren't going very good in Philippi. Let me just copy
Let me
this
just
letter.
copy that letter. Yeah.
Send that over. Ephesus is having problems. All right, let me just copy this letter here and send that over to him. No, he wrote and spoke to what they needed to hear.
Because
and
each
I don't
community
know, I
is
just came up with
unique.
that example. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's great. And each
But yeah,
community is
every
unique.
community is unique and has their own issues, and he spoke to them uniquely. He didn't copy the letters and say, hey, this is for everyone. At the time, he sat down and he listened to what they had going on. He prayed over it and had the Spirit speak through him and wrote out those letters. So, yeah, that's exactly what we need to do. Stop copying. We can copy ideas. We can model strategies and ways to do it. But our messaging, you don't just simulcast Andy Stanley on Sunday mornings. You get up and you preach a unique written sermon. And even if you use something like Sermonly, I think is what it's called, or Ministry Pass, where they write sermon stuff for you, you still preach uniquely because your people have a unique need and you're called to shepherd those people. We have unique sermons on Sunday morning. We have unique worship sets. And even though you might be using Lifeway, VBS, your church building, your teachers are unique. And so even if you're using the same curriculum as everyone else, your VBS is unlike everyone else's. So why should your messaging and your communications be the same as everyone else? You're unique. Be unique. Sorry, go ahead.
Justin, one of the things that you said last time we had you on that I want to make sure that we touch on again, because it really hit both Robert and I last time. And in fact, we spent quite a bit of time after our show discussing this, is your talk about Facebook versus website. That we're seeing a trend that a lot of churches are abandoning their website because they think that all they need to do is put their effort, their time, their money into Facebook and Facebook ads, have a killer Facebook page that has a lot of activity, a lot of postings on it, has the stream of their service, and they're investing into Facebook ads to reach out to people. And you had an incredible analogy that talked about why Facebook is a tool, but it cannot be your primary method. And I was wondering if you could share that with us again.
I hope I'll be just as wise in what I say today.
It's 6 months ahead. We're
so
sure
the
you're
way I see
wiser.
I hope so. I've been praying more. So think about it like your ministry, okay? You have a church home, but your congregation does not live in this church home, right? They go out and they do missions in their own homes, in their work, in their schools, in their hobbies, wherever they meet and gather to do their hobbies, soccer fields, stuff like that, basketball courts. But everything comes back to your church home. You gather together in your church home, okay? Online is somewhat the same way, okay? Your website is your church home. You own that space. You can say and do whatever you want in that space, okay? Social media, and this is any social media, not just Facebook, is like the mission field. You go out. It's where your people live the rest of the week. They may come and watch worship online worship online on Sundays. They might come and sign up for events, but most of the time, they're not sitting on your website. They're out doing life on social media and on Facebook, okay? If you plant a church, a lot of churches will start in a home. They'll rent out a space. They might rent out a fellowship hall of an existing church. They might rent out a movie theater or a gym at a school. But that's not the long-term plan because they're limited by what the other facilitators will allow them to do. They always want to have their own church building so they can run the church as they see fit. If you kill off your website and you just go on Facebook and have your ministry on Facebook, I'm not saying that's not going to work, but I'm saying you're basically renting a church space because you're reliant on Facebook's good graces to serve your church up to people. You're relying on your people's data to be used to pay for your church space on there. And a lot of people say like social media is rented space. Your website is like owning a space. It's worse than that, okay? Because when I sign a renter's agreement, they have promises to me as well as I have promises to them. Facebook can do whatever they want, whenever they want, for whatever reason they want. You're not renting a space on Facebook. You're couch surfing. And at any time, they can kick you off that couch if they don't like, don't want, or don't even care about what you're saying. I'm not saying that in a malicious Facebook is the devil and he's against every church. I'm saying for whatever reason, good or bad, someone can go in there and flag a copyright. Hey, I own this song that they're singing. Strike one. Happens a couple more times, you're kicked off. You can go in any church communications group and they'll say, I don't know why our Facebook got blocked, banned, unused, whatever. It's rented space. It's couch surfing space. All right. So it's good to have a Facebook profile. And there are some people, the very younger people, that will go, when they look for a church, they'll check you out on Facebook. Older people, millennials and above, will look at your website first, and then we'll say, well, what does life look like? They'll go to Facebook just to make sure like you're doing what you say you do on your website. But to just neglect your website and say, well, we don't need that, everyone's on Facebook, you're setting yourself up. Number one, you got all your eggs in one basket. Number two, you're only doing church on the street corner instead of in your actual building where you have control over how you gather. And number three, on Facebook, you're only as good as your last 5 posts. So I would encourage you, forget everything you knew about your church. Go to your Facebook page or your Instagram and look at the last 5 posts that your church did. And imagine you're someone that's never been to your church before. Their only impression, if all they had was Facebook, their only impression of your church is in the last 5 posts. And what I usually see is, number one, you're just a motivational church because you just post pretty graphics of scripture and quotes. Number two, you just do worship services because that's all that's on you just stream your weekly worship service. So this church really isn't doing anything other than preaching and singing, and I can get better preaching and singing on Spotify. Number three, you're not active at all. Is this place even open? Number four, they see like maybe some different posts, but they don't see people. They just see announcements and events. And yeah, like, man, this church is doing stuff, but I mean, I don't know if I fit in there. Or number five, which is what you want to be, they go on your Facebook and they see pictures of your people. They see your pastor preaching truth. They see people commenting and engaging. They see you engaging and commenting back. They see events that you're doing, but not just the events that are highlighted, but the people that are at the events are highlighted. It's one thing to say, VBS is coming up this May, sign up here. Look at this pretty graphic from Lifeway. It's another thing to say, to show pictures from last year's VBS. We're so looking forward to this again. We had so much feedback on the egg on the spoon race. We're going to make sure we do that. And we got the sign up here right now. Come have fun with us. Meet Miss Becky. She's the leader here. She's going to be teaching the 3rd graders. Like seeing the people, the actual church. And when you see that variety, that diversity of content on your Facebook in the last 5 posts, then I have a better idea of, oh, okay, this church is pretty cool. But again, does your last 5 posts show your service times? Does your last 5 posts show kind of like, what should I wear? If it doesn't have people, I have no idea what to wear. Does it show information about the children's security? There are things that when people want to go somewhere, there's certain information they want to know. My dad, when I invite him to a new restaurant, first question he asks me, what should I wear? Because apparently, I guess I invited him somewhere and he came incredibly underdressed or overdressed. I don't know. But he didn't want that to happen again. So the first question whenever I invite him to a new restaurant, what should I wear? I don't know what I did to him. But then number two, when he comes to the restaurant with me, he knows the menu better than I have. We went to a Mexican restaurant and in the Woodlands, and we sat down at the restaurant, and he told me all about the chef, how she grew up, and she lived on a cornfield, and she fell in love with corn and kind of created her own masa, and they only have corn tortillas at this restaurant because it's such a part of their heritage, and all the different dishes they had. And I'm like, where'd you learn all this? He's like, the website. Because he was interested, and that stuff may be on Facebook, but if it's a year ago, no one's seeing it except for people that want to sell you stuff and they want to go find what's wrong with you, or number two, people that are like prospecting to work for you, like pastors in view of a calling or something. Past your last 5 posts on Facebook, that no one's going to see that stuff. It is volatile. So if you rely on just Facebook, you're basically relying on people getting a complete, remember the puzzle piece, complete picture of your church based on the last 5 things you posted. And most churches, the last 5 things they posted are boring, not how they want to be known, not how they want to be represented, and not valuable enough to me to help me feel understood and see where I could fit in. It's all about how great you are. Look how great we are. Aren't we so good? Well, if you're so good without me, why should I bother?
I love that.
That's a little bit of that's a whole lot of stuff. I hope that all made sense.
No,
but,
that's great.
Don't
And so,
neglect, again, Facebook is a road that leads to your website. Because if I do decide, hey, this church looks pretty cool, let me check it out. Now I'm going to go to your website where you have total control over what I see and even what I do.
yeah, I love that. That was exactly what I was hoping you would
That's
say.
great.
I want to just say it to our listeners right now. So wherever you're at with what Justin has just said, hit pause on this podcast. Go to your church's Facebook page, Instagram page, social media. Look at those last 5 posts and do what he just said. See, what are people seeing? What is your church represented? What are you looking like in that? I also think that is a pretty good segue right now for us to turn the page a little bit and go to Pastor's Picks.
And now, Pastor's Picks. What are we reading? What are we watching? What are we listening to? Does anyone really care? Probably not. But we will tell you anyways.
So, Justin, you're our guest today. We want to ask you, give you the first shot at this. Is there anything that you're reading right now, any movie that you've recently watched, or podcast that you're listening to that you say, man, this is really great, really, really impacted me?
And this can include like your Netflix and Hulu queue as well. So we talk about the most random stuff here ever.
Yeah, I'm going to give a shout out to a book. I just had it. I don't know what I did with it because I reference it all the time. And it's basically wherever, as you can tell, I take meetings standing. And so I'm just like walking around. The book, Both and by Jason Moore. Man, I wish I had it on me. I don't know where I put it. I might have taken it to another room. Both and by Jason Moore. We talk about online. We talk about in person. He has a fantastic framework foundation for what does it look like to create worship service that's actually participatory worship service for people online, where they don't feel like a fly on the wall, they don't feel like they're missing out, and they don't feel like a second thought, but you can actually create a worshipful ministry using your church as kind of the foundation, the starting point, but making sure people feel welcome if they're watching online or worshiping online. And then a couple of things about that. So I love that book, Both and by Jason Moore, Moore. I'm very excited for Dune 2. I didn't get to see the fan premiere, but that's coming out this weekend as of recording. So I am super stoked for that. I rewatched Dune on my big screen, and that was the first time I watched Dune, which I have not read the books, but the first time I watched it was on an airplane. And I was just fascinated by the presentation of it. And I was just listening to a podcast this morning, and they were talking about how the director of Dune and Dune 2 doesn't like dialogue. And so much of what he does is showing and not telling. And I'm very excited for that. And then podcasts, I listen to, I make fun of my sister-in-law because she watches a lot of garbage reality TV. But I just listen to a bunch of garbage pop culture podcasts. So, no inspirations there. Probably the most wholesome one I would recommend everyone watch is Myron Golden. We found him in our own brand research of kind of like brands we like and want to, and we like how they talk and present themselves. And Myron Golden kind of came on my radar. I really enjoy listening to his talks every week on YouTube. So he's a fun one to check out.
That's great. Bruce, we haven't heard from you much today. What are you into this week?
Well, I'm still working through a book one of my ex-students wrote called Coffee with Matt and Joe. And it's kind of a story way of breaking in or teaching or the church to use small groups. And I think it's very helpful. And that's something he uses as a church planter. And I've put off reading it, so I'm working on it right now. Just trying to see how we can do a better job of being a friendship church. Our reputation and our goal is we're going to use relationships to grow and to do things and work with people. And this is one of the ways that I can look at that and see how we can do a better job.
It's kind of the relaunch of all the shows. So like I'm kind of out of movie mode, back into shows, keeping up with The Rookie, The Neighborhood, bunch of stuff like that. It's fun. I'm reading really slow through John Mark Comer's newest book, Practicing the Way, and then also leading some discipleship training for some small groups, very intentional small groups of some key leaders in my church, and we're reading Dan Greider's Crucial Conversations as a part of that. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
That's great.
And you, good sir?
Let's see. So I've read this article in Men's Health magazine at the beginning of the year that was 100 books that every man should read in their lifetime.
I was like, so you've read 7 pages all year?
7 pages. 100 books that every man should read in their lifetime. And so I'm trying to work through that list. And I just finished The Art of War.
Sun Tzu?
Sun Tzu, yeah. So have gone through that. And I actually think that we won't get into it now. It might be another episode sometime. But there's a lot of great insight for the church there.
I'd love it. Yeah, I'll read it. Let's talk about it. I'll read it. We'll talk about it one day.
There really is.
Please tell me Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead is on that list. Every man needs to read that, especially nowadays.
Yeah, I haven't gotten that far on my list yet. Yeah, I'm on like number 3. Okay. I think it's February. we're coming to the end of February.
Well, no, it's 100. It's not 100 books this year. It's just 100 books. Period.
100 books in the lifetime. Yeah. I've started listening to a podcast by James Corden. Did I get his last name right?
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
James Corden. That he sits down with a celebrity and has them talk about an item, a person, a place, a memory that has significant meaning to them. And I listened to an episode yesterday with Jeremy Renner that really, really jumped out at me. I enjoy Jeremy Renner's movies. I loved The Hurt Locker. I think he does a good job as a secondary character of Hawkeye. In the Marvel.
Have you watched Mayor of Kingstown?
I have not. I started it, and the language was a bit much for me. So
the language is rough, and yeah.
But he said some things in this show that really stood out to me. He was talking a lot about his accident that he had in 2023 that almost took his life on New Year's Day 2023, and he talks about his near-death experience that he had in that and how he said, I didn't want to come back. He said it was the most peaceful, joyful, purposeful thing I've ever experienced in my life. And he said, when I came back, I was disappointed that I had to come back and couldn't stay there. And he talked at length about his experience in this place, but then many times throughout the show said, I'm not a religious person, I'm not a religious person, I'm not a religious person, when talking about other things. And it was just intriguing to me how you can experience something like that. And he talked about that now life here has the whole purpose of his life now is to get back to that place. That he says, I was never scared of death before, but now I embrace death because I know what's awaiting me. And yet then in the next breath would follow it up with, I'm not a religious person. I'm not a faith person. And so that was pretty interesting to see the different angles on that and why that experience that he had didn't prompt him to search for meaning in this life and what he was experiencing and anticipating in the afterlife. And then just a whole lot of baseball. Spring training is underway. The Dodgers are undefeated. The Dodgers are undefeated in spring training. And I have watched every single Dodgers spring training game so far. Shohei Ohtani had his debut yesterday and hit a 2-run home run in his debut in Dodger blue. So all is right with the world. Baseball is back. And tomorrow my wife will be back. I'll have baseball and my wife, and everything will be great. So that's about all we've got for Pastor's Picks.
That was Pastor's Picks.
So I'm assuming we're running low on time.
This is going to be a two-parter right now.
Well, and I know we can't keep Justin forever. Can I ask a question that may shift us a little bit, Justin, and then time-wise, we'll see what we got. We actually spent a long time, and if you, I would not, if you're not Justin, I would recommend listening to this. If you are Justin, don't waste your time because you know more about this than we do. Like, how do you see AI shaping and influencing maybe positively and poorly in what you're seeing with marketing in the church world right now?
So AI, I'll give you my philosophy, is being used both well and poorly. I find AI works best when you use it as a brainstorming agent, bounce some thoughts off of it. Hey, what's another perspective I didn't think about? Give me an idea, or here's an idea. How would someone take that? How could it be misrepresented? I think there's a lot of brainstorming here. I have an idea for a sermon series, Upside Down Living. It's about how Christians are called to look upside down to a right side up world. What are some other ways to visualize that? I think that's a great way to use AI. The wrong way to use it, and unfortunately what a lot of people think it can be, which is they use it wrong, they get bad results, and they never want to use it again, is they think it's just an answer machine. They say, oh, well, give me what should I use for this chicken piccata instead of this ingredient? And it tells them, like, use Greek yogurt. And it's like, what? That was terrible. But it was like literally like you were asking for an answer. Instead, I would say, like, okay, I need to make chicken piccata. I don't have any heavy cream. What should I use instead? And it's like, okay, well, you could use Greek yogurt because of this. You could use milk because of this and put a thickener in it. And like, okay, I don't have cornstarch. So you try flour. And I make that chicken piccata. I use 2% milk with a little bit of flour, and it came out just as good. Because I used it to brainstorm. What are some ideas? I love to cook. So sometimes I'll be like, here's what I have in my pantry. What can I make? And use it to brainstorm, to get some other perspective. We use it in our agency. I know that's a turnoff to some pastors, but we use it because we use it for, like, here's our message. And how could this be misconstrued? And, you know, it spit back. It's like, well, you talk a lot about strength. People could confuse that with self-strength. They don't feel strength in Jesus as like it comes from outside of themselves. They feel like you're going to cultivate it within themselves, which could set up a false expectation when you tell them you're going to have a stronger will to live when you connect with us. They may not realize it's a faith community because you're not specific enough about Jesus. And it's like, oh, that's a great point. Let's take it back to the team and let's say, okay, we need a little bit more Jesus in here. Like I feel like we do a pretty good job about contextualizing church as a Christian community and not just another faith community or like fraternity. Sometimes we still miss that. And AI kind of gives us some perspective there. Same thing, our program names, Influence, Inception, Peak Positioning, and Momentum Multiplier. AI helped me to brainstorm that because it was like, all right, like I know the first phase about your influence, you know, what should that be? And it gave me a bunch of names. And one of the things that spit out was like Inception, because it needs to be subtle. If you go out and bang on doors, you're going to be a Bible thumper, not someone that's actually bathing the community in your presence. So, you know, it's a great brainstorming tool. Just don't expect it to know everything. There was, in fact, a lawyer who used AI to pull up case history and totally got a totally fake fabricated case. And the judge threw out, was like, all right, we're done. Like, you don't even know your history. So you got to be careful. It doesn't know everything, but it can help you get some perspective.
It definitely messes up a lot with the Bible. I mean, it does not do a great job, but I have found, just so we can move on, Tony had a guy years ago that would basically listen to the sermons and then write small group discussion questions on the fly that they would then hand to people as they were heading into basically Sunday school small group. And I'm going, man, that's a really unique person. But in today's world of AI, you can drop that sermon in, hey, give me 10 good discussion questions off of this content, and it can do those types of things a little better. And so, no, that's really encouraging, and that's good. So, Tony?
Justin, we want to honor your time, but there's a couple other things I would love to get to with you. Do you have time to stick around a little bit longer, or do you have to get off of here?
Yeah, I got till the top of the hour.
All right, sounds great. So a couple other things. Based off of our last conversation, the other main thing that I heard repeatedly from listeners who suffered through the audio quality of that was the discussion that we had on websites and talking about the difference between informational and inspirational, and your take on that when it comes to a church's website. Why don't you dive into that a little bit with us?
Man, I hope we have enough time here. So a lot of folks think that because you came to my website, you want to know about me. And that's true in that you've only filled up a quarter of the cup. It's not so much what they want to know about you, it's they want to know about what you can do for them. Like we talked about earlier in the show. What makes you different? Why should I trust you? A lot of times when people are going to a website, they're not just looking for a place to go, they're looking for a reason to not go. And so one of the things that is an incredible turnoff is if you start talking Christianese, people are like, oh, well, I obviously don't fit in here because I don't know what the heck they're saying. And so they back out, they bounce out. The data shows that. And there's a dichotomy and a balance that you have to really strike. And that's balancing inspiration information versus inspiration. Information is like, hey, we've got if you go to a restaurant, okay, I'm informed. This is a burger place. You sit down, you look at the menu, and now what are you inspired to eat? You look at the names, you look at the names of the burgers, the descriptions of the burgers. You see what else they have to offer. You have the information, but once you sit down, now you're in inspiration mode. And so people don't go to church because they just don't know enough about it. People aren't saying, I wish I had a church to go to, but I just don't know when they meet. I'd love to go to Mosaic Fellowship, but I don't know what time their service is. And they go to your website and it's like, oh, Sunday at 11. Perfect. I'm there. That's not how decision-making works. So what makes your church unique? How do I fit in there? What can I expect as a result? Because if you tell me, oh, hey, when you come in here, you're going to have modern worship and a biblical truth speaking, and then you're going to get a benediction on your way out. Again, I can do that on Spotify. I can do that online through a number of church websites. So why should I care about you? And a lot of times, if we become informational, we become transactional, and we end up becoming consumeristic, meaning we're just a place to get stuff. Versus if you really are a faith community, if God is really changing lives, if there really is a transition between before Christ and after Christ and your church was the connection point, then showcase that. That's what inspires me. It's not, hey, we'd love to have you Sundays at 11. It's, I know you're tired, but there's hope and healing here Sundays at 11, right? It's a little cheesy, but when you say it that way, but when you see it on a website, it makes sense. Same thing if I go to a sunglasses e-commerce shop. It's not great. There's a difference between great sunglasses at great prices and become the envy of everyone at your school. That's speaking in a way that, like, she understands that I'm not popular. I'm thinking of one specific person that I follow on TikTok. She understands that I'm not popular and that I want to be cooler. I want to be better known. I want to be embraced by people that I look up to, for better or for worse. So she speaks to my need. The other person is just, are we cheaper than the other guy? I hope so, and you'll buy our sunglasses. So speak to their needs and give them a next step to call them to action. This is the other problem with church websites, is they're very informational. Look at all the stuff we can do, and look at all the stuff we are doing, and pick what you want to do next, right? To go along back to the restaurant. I love food. I love eating out. To go back to a restaurant, if I walk in and I sit down, there's a difference between the restaurant where I have to sit down and a waitress comes and throws a menu at me and says, tell me what you want. That's what most church websites are. I go and land on the website, tell me what you want. Do you want to watch a service? Do you want to plan a visit? Do you want a connect card? Do you want a prayer request? Do you want to see our ministries? Do you want to see how awesome our kids are? Do you want to see what our upcoming events are? There's a lot of stuff there. I don't know what to do. Instead, your website should be like the helpful host. I walk in. Hey, welcome, glad you're here. Where can I take you? Where do you want to sit? Table or booth? I sit down. Would you like a wine menu? Would you like a regular menu? Would you like a kids menu? Would you like a booster seat? They're guiding me on a journey to have a better experience than if I just sit down and I've got to go get my own drinks, right? Because it's all up to me. So instead of saying Sundays at 11, look how great we are, it's, I know you're tired and this is a place to find refuge. Click here to see what to expect on Sundays at 11. And that's it. You want people to take one action. If someone, because believe it or not, people are only going to take one action. What's the one action you want them to take? If someone wants to sign up for an event, they'll find the events page. If someone wants to give online, they'll find the giving button. But if you really want your website to be an asset in your mission, to be an educational discipleship opportunity, you need to guide that specific person to take a next step that you want them to take. And it takes inspiration. We don't click a button because, oh, we learned that the button says click here. We click a button because we know what to, or we have expectations for what's on the other side. We see this in marketing, and a lot of us smarter people that are listening to the podcast, we hate this, right? You ever buy something and it's like, hey, do you want to buy this upsell? And there's a yes and no button. It's like, yeah, give me more. Or no, I don't want to lose an extra 50 pounds. And we hate that. It's so cheesy. And like, people can't be this stupid to click on that and feel bad. And I'm not saying they are, but I'm saying that stuff works. It's been tested at scale. And we do the same thing. When we have a homepage that's, I'm getting off on a tangent, guys, sorry. When we have a homepage that's plan a visit, connect with us, get a prayer request, here's our different ministries, here's the upcoming events, here's the book that we have, here's how to watch last service. we get X amount of clicks. But if we have a home page that's plan a visit, 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 we get X times 10 number of clicks because we are asking people to do one thing. I told my daughter this story. I had a friend that worked at a candy shop, and she was in charge of free samples. Hey, go grab some gummy bears and go hand out free samples. At the mall where people are walking around, free gummy bears. She grabs 10 gummy bears, takes them outside, sets on a table, and says, hey, would you like a free sample of a gummy bear? We've got 10 flavors to try. People walk by, she gives away a couple gummy bears. So she's like, okay, well, people don't like these flavors, so let me get rid of these. And she's got 3 gummy bears. Hey, would you like to try a gummy bear? We got 3 flavors to choose from. Would you like cherry, apple, or whatever? And more people take it, but still she's getting a lot of passerbys. So instead, she takes the gummy bears back inside. She goes to one jar. She grabs one, whatever flavor, cherry. And now when people are passing by, it's, hey, do you want a gummy bear? So you've taken a decision from there's 10 options down to 3 options, down to 1 option. It's a yes or no question. Do you want a gummy bear? More people tried the gummy bear when there was 1 option, yes or no, and more people came into the store because now she could say, if you like that, we got that plus more in the store, versus, hey, try to stop your busy day and now make another decision. And by the way, there's 10 things that you get to choose from. Now you got to sit down and read or sit down and listen to me, all to try this. It's not worth it. I got places to be. I'm going to eat later anyways. But 1 gummy bear? Yeah, I'll try 1 gummy bear. So inspiration is also making it easy for someone to take a next step. It's the same reason why if we at a church, at the end of announcements, we say, all right, we got this great event coming up. You can scan the QR code. You can go online to this. You can sign up in the back, and we've got a kiosk here on your way out. I've already stopped listening. I've already forgotten what the event is. But if you say, everyone take out your phones. If you want to go to VBS, scan this QR code right now and sign up. It's one thing. Everyone can do it. It's done. It's simple. It's easy. It's memorable. You'll have more people after service. Hey, can you put the slide back up? Because I want to scan that QR code. They're not trying to remember everything that you told them to do. So all that to say, wrapping up, information is just presenting information. No one gets saved because they read the Bible and are informed of what the history of Jesus is. They're inspired by the Spirit, something speaking within them, and they're inspired to take a next step. So how can you make your website functional to where you're not just presenting information, but you're presenting inspiration in the form of here's the transformation. Man, I don't want to get tongue twisted. Here's the transformation of what can happen once you join our community. Show testimonies of what happened. Show sermons of stories of what happened. Show pictures of people that are different now than they were before. That's what gets people to see, okay, there's something here. And again, what sets you apart from other churches, because it's not a lack of information that's the issue. It's a lack of inspiration.
So Justin, I don't even pastor a church right now, and I want to call you and have you work through this process with me. So if I'm a listener who is hearing everything that you've said over the last hour, and I'm guessing a lot of our listeners are like me. Not everyone's as smart as Bruce or Robert, and just picking right up and thinking, okay, you've given so much great information here that I don't even know where to begin. What is the starting point in reaching out to you and starting a discussion on how they can take their church marketing and just their church as a whole, because it's so much more than marketing, and help you help guide them through this process of better engaging and reaching their communities?
Very simple. Go to navachurchmarketing.com. Our hosts are incredibly smart and wise. I'm sure they'll have the link down below. navachurchmarketing.com. And guess what? There's one button throughout my whole site. Get started. Because I practice what I preach. And so you click that button and you'll schedule a 10-minute call on my calendar. And on that call, we're just going to talk about what you got, where you want to go, and then we'll discuss some next steps of what makes sense. Most times we start with a road mapping session. It's figuring out what's going to be the quickest way to get where God's calling you to go, using modern marketing methods to assist you in that. So yeah, navachurchwebsite.com, click the big blue button in the top. Might be green now.
Nope, it's blue. Oh, it is green in the top right.
Calendar.
Yep, it's green in the top right.
Yeah, I think
blue
we
in
just
the
changed
middle.
it.
Yeah.
Data, baby. We just changed it. We might change all the buttons to green. I don't know yet.
That's awesome.
Yeah, click that button and that'll put you on my calendar.
That's great. Justin, one last thing I want to get to before we get off of here. We've taken up a ton of your time, and we really, really appreciate it.
Yes.
We have a segment of our show that we like to hit every week that I think is very applicable to you in your church marketing. And this is where we like to take a look at a church sign that maybe we've seen around a church marquee that makes us laugh or makes us think, what were they thinking? And so we're hoping that maybe you have something to chime in here. This is Signs. So, Justin, do you have a favorite church sign, church marquee that you have seen around the Houston area or in all of your travels?
Favorite? No.
I
Got a
saw
lot of unfavorites, but
I saw one this week that said Adam and Eve were the first to not read the Apple terms and conditions.
I think I passed by that same church a little while ago.
Well, that's all the time that we have for today on the Small Church Podcast. We want to thank you for tuning in. This edition of the Small Church Podcast was brought to you by Lou Deckermar Properties of Keller Williams Realty, the Couch Surfers Association of America, the book Both and by Jason Moore, and of course, Nava Church Marketing. If you would like to find out more about Justin Nava and how Nava Church Marketing can help you and your church better reach your community for Christ, visit navachurchmarketing.com and begin your discussion today. Again, we want to thank you for listening. Please like us on social media, subscribe to us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, join the discussion, and help us reach a larger audience with the cause of Christ and the message of small church leadership. On behalf of Robert Kell and Bruce Montgomery, I am Tony Marr, and we want to thank you once again for spending part of your time with us. Thanks for listening to the Small Church Podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and we will talk to you next week.